Hey everyone, this is Kyle with Simulation Lab here in Brooklyn, New York. Back again with another 3D Studio Max tutorial using TyFlow. And it's pretty rainy and gross out today, so it's a perfect day to make some tutorials. So today I decided to go back to an early experiment that I did with TyFlow a while back. And it's using a position limiter, and it's just basically just creating these like rubber band looking um, objects that collide together and then create this sort of like amoeba-like pattern. So let's watch it here. So kind of a satisfying thing to watch. The video did pretty well on Instagram, so I decided to make a little tutorial about it. Um, so let's get started. We'll jump into Max, and first things we'll do is we'll do our unit setup. I'll stick with centimeters for this one. 1 equals 1 centimeter, and then I'm going to create a plane. And I might do something like 300 by 300. And we'll stick with 4 segments for the faces. Okay. Um, and then what we'll want to do first is under our splines, we're going to create a circle. And I'm going to assign a radius of 8, something like that. We can adjust that as necessary. I think we're going to stick with something similar to this video, but we might do something a little different. We might like extrude up the splines rather than creating um, piped objects, like pipes out of them. So we'll deal with that later once we get the sim set up. Okay, so we have our spline created for a circle. Go ahead and create a TyFlow object in our scene. And I'll open this up and scale it a little bit so you can see everything. Should be good. First things we'll do is we'll create a birth, put in a birth operator, 0, and we'll do something like 2. Yeah, we'll stick with 200 for now. Display geometry. And then what we're going to want to do is use a position object operator. Toss that one in there. We'll pick our surface. And now we have a bunch of dots, a bunch of points around our surface, which is good. Um, and then what I'm going to want to do is we'll toss in the shape operator. But first, before we go any further, I'm going to put in a um, gravity so it has something to attract to. So I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to select our circle and add that. So now we have a ton of circles. And then in our position object, I'm going to turn on separation and then crank that up a little bit. There we go. So none of the circles are touching each other. That's what I want. Maybe I'll make this a little different color so you can see. Blue. There you go. So now we have a bunch of circles populated over the faces of our plane, and they're not touching each other. So a little bit of separation is what you want. Okay, so from here, real quick, I'm going to toss this over to the side. I'm going to create a gravity object. I'm going to put that right in the middle. And I might as well just zero this out so I know my gravity object is zeroed out as well. And I'm going to change that to spherical, and I'm going to do something like 0.1, like really low gravity. Okay, so now we have that set up. Put that to the side, and we'll drag over our flow. So we have our shape operator set up, and we're going to convert it to a cloth. We're going to do a cloth bind on the whole thing, and that'll give us our dots along the circles, which is what we want. That's what we're going to be using to sim against. And then we'll do particle physics. Toss a particle physics operator on there. And I think what we'll do is we'll keep stretch and shear at 0.5 for now, and I'm just going to set this to 0.5 as well. Bend. And then add shell to surface. I might do something like 10, 5, I don't know. And I don't want any in the 0.5, something like that. Do 0. Okay, so now that we can see our circles, they're extruded out, which that's cool. If we wanted to make them pipes, we'd do something a little different, but we could cover that a little bit later on. I do want like the cylinder objects, I think, for this example, because in this one, I just had the pipes, or I had the splines, and I just basically piped them, and I don't really want to do that for this one, so do something a little different. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I think maybe I'll vary the size of these. So do something like 25, 50, 40. Yeah. And maybe I'll make them like a little bit bigger. 120. I don't know. Increase the separation a little bit. Increase the separation a little bit more. Yeah, that should be fine. And maybe I'll make it 110. Yeah, that's good. I just don't want any I just don't want any of them touching at the beginning of the simulation because there's a bunch of problems that end up appearing with particles binding to other shapes. We don't want that to happen. We could control that a little bit. So in our particle physics operator, we'll change this to like 1.5 or something. We got to put in our force operator. I'm going to choose our gravity. And then we should be able to see what's going on now. I might need to slow it down, maybe put a slow operator in there. But I'm going to change my frame count to like 300. I'll give us 10 seconds of animation. I just want to see how this plays out. Okay, cool. So now you can see what's happening. They're all colliding with each other. And that's looking pretty cool. We might want to slow that down a lot because it's happening really fast. So we'll put a slow operator in here. And we'll toss it down to something like 15. I don't know. And then we're going to put in our limiter. Yeah, we'll put that before all this. And we're going to do a limit position. And in the Z, I'm going to do something like 4. So 4 might work. Let's see how that works. So, okay, it's happening a little slower. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of getting what we're looking for. And now this sims out super quick, which is really nice. But you can still see there, oh boy, there's a bunch of overlapping happening. And eventually they kind of crush into themselves and it becomes this mess, this chaos. So we're going to need to fix that. Okay, so a couple things we can do here is in our particle physics operator, we're going to set stiffness to 1. And then in our actual TyFlow object, under particle bind solvers, we're going to set this pretty high, so it's something like 100. And then that should eliminate the crushing effect once it gets to the center. That's looking a lot better. Cool. You can still tell that there's a little bit of crossover happening, so maybe in our limiter, we might change this a little bit higher value. I think maybe 6. Okay, that should get us what we're looking for. I'll turn off edge faces for now. I don't really need to see that. Okay, still getting some overlap. We might want to increase our steps, solver steps. And before I touch the solver steps under main settings, I'm going to set this to like quarter frame. I got a feeling that it's going to need a little bit of extra time to sim that accurately. I like what I'm seeing here. I don't see any overlapping or jittering or weird stuff happening. So I think we're going to keep that. So what we'll do is in our TyFlow object, we'll turn off geometry. We don't need to see the dots. And then if we want to render this thing out, put in mesh operator, set it to render only. That's fine. And then I think from here, what we'll want to do is I'll toss in a material ID, and I'll set that to, actually I'll just zero this out so it doesn't have to process everything. I'll set it to random and then bake into particle meshes. Toss that over to the side real quick, and then I'm going to shell this. Toss on a shell modifier, give it a little bit of a thickness to them so we can see what's going on, and maybe like reduce that a little bit. Something like that should be cool. And then from here, we could, let's pop on our edge face and see what we're working with. All right. So what we'll want to do is in our cloth object, cloth operator, it'll do like 5, yeah, something like that for the inner amount, and then the outer amount maybe we'll do like 3. I don't know. Okay, so that'll give us, it could get a little closer to the surface, so maybe we'll do something like the inner, we'll just increase the inner amount a little bit more. That's all I did here, is I just increased the inner amount of the shell on the cloth modifier operator. Okay, so now we have our cylinders, and they're clashing together pretty well. So that's looking pretty cool. One thing we could do is maybe we could do like a turbo smooth or something. So let's try that. See how that looks. It might look pretty weird. It's looking kind of cool. They almost look like little cups or something. All right. So now we have that set up. I'm just going to turn this turbo smooth off for right now. Maybe we'll turn that on when we like render it out. But we have this material ID on there, material ID operator. So we're going to toss on a multi-sub-object material. Just going to create one real quick. For things first is I'm going to use FStorm for this. So we'll bring in our render settings, toss on FStorm, and do this 1080, 1080. Light samples 12, 2401. It's my typical settings. Under tools, we'll convert the scene. Okay, we don't need that anymore. Environment, I'm going to toss in an HDRI just real quick because I know I'm going to need it. And then I'm going to choose one. Okay. I got that guy. Yep. I'm going to set it to spherical environment. Set the gamma to 2.2. Okay, and then I'll keep the multiplier at 1 for now, and we don't need this anymore. So now in our multi-sub-object material, I'm going to call it like ribbons or something. And then I'm going to choose multi-sub-object, discard the old one, and I'll set like 3, I don't know. Choose a material, and then I'll make this like kind of like a tan color. Peach. I have a little bit of reflection. Turn on the glossiness to point like 7.5 or something. And then I'll give us that effect, which that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll add some like a texture or something to it. But for this material, for this tutorial, we'll just kind of keep it simple. I'll copy it down to my second slot, name it 2, And it'll do like a peach and like a salmon color or something, like a red. That'd be kind of cool. And copy it down. And I'll make this one like, I don't know, what do you think? It's kind of blue, like a pale blue. I don't know, maybe a 3. Okay, so now we have that set up. I'm going to toss that on our, um, okay, so I put that material on our objects here. And what I need to change in the material ID, instead of random, I'm going to set that to cycle. So it's going to cycle through all of them. And notice one thing I forgot to do is under the shape operator. Reason why we're not seeing the different colors is I need to do my material ID override, and we'll do minimum 1, maximum 3. There we go. And so now we see all the different colors. I'll toss my TyFlow object out of the way here. And I think I might keep this plane. This is the sim plane, so what I might do is just under object properties, I'm going to do render bool displays a box, and I might toss in like an actual plane. But before we do that, I'm going to set up a camera real quick. If you're familiar with FStorm, you can feel free to fast forward to the end of the video. This is just some like quick render settings set up. Set up my camera real quick, just so we can see what we're dealing with. But if you're new to using FStorm or rendering in 3D Studio Max in general, I'm going to cover some basic render setups. This is like typically what I do in my videos. So I'm going to change this viewport here to my camera, change it to default shading, and then under my render settings, I'm going to, oh, okay, I set that up already. So I'm going to go to show save frames. So now what I did for this video is I kind of just positioned the camera like above it, so I could like see like a good amount of them. I think maybe I'll like run the sim a little bit. Okay, so I might dive the camera down in there a little bit more, and might grab my target, move it down, because I just want to see like a full screen view of like all the little particles as they're coming together. So I'm going to sim the whole thing out and pause the video. I'll be back in a second. Okay, it's looking pretty cool. So what I might do is I might grab the camera and I'm going to shift it like this. Being that it coalesces into, more or less a square kind of shape, I'm going to, I just want to make sure that I have the whole thing framed up pretty well. So I'm going to toss this over here, and then I might grab my camera and put it overhead a little bit more, and that should be pretty cool. Looks pretty dense. So if I scrub through all the way, looks like just some circles are colliding together and then they mash up. So that's kind of cool. It's pretty satisfying to watch. I might be able to like drag that out a little bit more. There you go. So I got the entire extent of it. And being that we're just looking at the ground plane, I don't need to make like a backsplash or anything. So I'm just going to do another plane. And this is going to be for rendering purposes only. So I can reduce the poly count to just 1. And then I'm going to make a material. And I might do background. This video, I might do something darker. Let's see how this looks. I don't know. And then real quick, I'm going to set up some lights. And we'll make it a disk. Something like 10, I don't know. Put that there. Raise it up. Quick and dirty. Something like that, I don't know. And then we'll do a secondary light, maybe just to wash the scene a little bit more over here. that. I don't know. Yep. And then I'll set that one to be like 3 or 4 maybe. So now we have that going. I'm gonna turn on my turbo smooth and let's try to render this thing out. Drag my settings over and under interactive render. First things first is I'm gonna save this. Okay, and then now go ahead and process the rendering and see how it looks. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty cool. Not totally sure if I like the gray background. Maybe let's switch that to like white. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Oh, it's looking pretty cool though. All right, so now we have like these crazy looking ribbons. Um, we could always take it a step further, right? We can always take things like a little bit, take a little bit further with it. What I might try to do with these is might blow up my computer, but I don't care. We're just going to try it. So I have this saved here, so in case I fail horribly at this, I can always go back. So what I might do is like turn off the Turbo Smooth for now, bring back over my TyFlow object here, pop this open, and I want to make sure that this is like touching the ground plane. So in our cloth bind operator down here, increase the amount like a little bit more. That's good. And then I want to take our plane that we have here, and I'm just going to drag that down a little bit. Okay. Right. So the thing I want to try is I'm going to use a TyBoolean operator and make like some noise on like a surface. And so I mean, if okay, so as a just a general statement, if you liked what's going on here and this is the effect that you want, then feel free to leave the video if you want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it a step further, and I have this idea that I want to like take an animated noise map or like a surface and put some animated noise on it, and then it's going to like wave around, and then I'm going to Boolean that surface away from this. So as the cylinders are like coming together and like smashing into each other, there's also this like animated noise map on top of all of that. Which is going to like cut away at the very surface of all of it. So I don't know. I mean, it might look cool. It might look stupid. So we're just going to try it. So, okay, let's bring this back. I'm going to reset this all the way back to 0. And then in our outer amount, I'm going to increase this a little bit more. Something like that. I don't know. Okay, maybe like, I'll just do 15. I don't know. And what I want to do is I got to create another plane. Make it pretty big, like about that size. And object properties, this one's not going to be renderable. And I'm going to lift it up maybe to about there or something. We'll see. We'll see how this looks. And then I got to turn my edge faces back on. And I'll do like 50, 50, 80, 80, something like that. Yeah. And then we'll do a noise modifier. Again, I'm not totally sure if this is going to work, but it might look cool. And we'll do something like that. I'm going to turn my TyFlow. I'm going to disable my TyFlow object for right now. I don't really need to see that. And then I'm going to turn animated noise, maybe put it down to like 0.15. See how that looks. turn on edge faces, turn this to something you can actually see. Here you go. So the idea here is I'm going to have this like animated noise map, and it's going to like in real time Boolean away the tops, basically like the tops of the cylinders. So I'm going to like turn this a little bit up a little bit, something like that. Should be kind of cool. So from here, what we could do is I might, just to check things out, I'm going to turn on my, I'm going to enable my flow just so we can see how this is working. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So this is not touching the ground. That's the only thing I don't want it to do is at any point I don't want it to be touching the ground plane. So it's looking like it's pretty good. Okay, so now that I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shell this. And I'm going to go like that. We don't really care about the top of it. Enable the flow. Cool. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. And maybe just without Turbo Smooth on for right now, I'm going to do a TyBoolean. And I have plenty of tutorials how TyBoolean works. But okay, moment of truth. Takes a while to process. All right, cool. All right, yeah, that's looking kind of cool. You can tell the material IDs change for the top surfaces. So in the TyBoolean, we can go get original element ID. And that should change like these ones to blue because it's supposed to be blue. All right, cool. So that worked. And now we could see how it works if I like sim this out a little bit, and then I'll pause the video and come back. It's going to take a little while. Okay, so now that we have that, it looks pretty cool. It's a ton of geometry. It might have a cool effect. I mean, it does look cool from like an angle like that. So we'll see if it actually reads. And this is definitely not something that can run in real time. So just word to the wise. But we'll check it out. I mean, honestly, it doesn't really give me any more of an interesting effect. So I'm not sure if I want to use it. It might show up more. It might look much more interesting when we render it out. So I might just like process this animation and render it out and just kind of like see how it looks. I mean, it might look cool. Um, it might look kind of dumb, but regardless, we can always go back to our previous one. So I like how this is looking in general. So I think I'm going to keep it. Okay. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I might tweak the materials a little bit more and the lighting and stuff, but I'm liking how this is looking so far. Yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of this tutorial. If you found it to be helpful or it's just something interesting that you can do. But again, if you liked the video, let me know. And please smash the like button and subscribe for more. Got a big list of tutorials of all kinds of stuff that I want to make. So anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.